The third method that we will use to solve quadratic equations is to complete the square. There is a certain form that we need to solve this equation for in order to use completing the square method. And the first thing we want to do is keep our two x terms on the left and move our constant term over to the right. To do that, we will need to subtract 4 from both sides. So I end up with x squared minus 6x equals to negative 4. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw two blanks because we're going to fill in those blanks. So again, the first thing I did was I kept my two x terms on the left, subtracted 4 from both sides, and moved negative 4, my constant, to the right-hand side. On the left side, we are going to form a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial is a trinomial that, when factored, will factor into two binomials that are identical. To fill in this blank, we will use the coefficient of x. We will take half. If you take half of negative 6, you can divide it by 2. Half of that would be negative 3. Now square that number. You will always take half of this number and square it. Well, when you square negative 3, you end up with 9. The number that you always put in this blank will always be positive, so we will add 9 to both sides. What you add to the left side, you must add to the right side. So again, we are forming a perfect square trinomial. I'm going to put in an extra step here. If you were to factor this, we break up x squared to x and x. The back sign tells me they're going to be the same. If it's positive, they're going to be the same. Look to the one at the front. That tells you they're both going to be negative. What are my factors of 9? 1 and 9, 3 and 3. When sides are the same, the outside and the inside, when foiled, will add together to give me 6. Therefore, I will use 3 and 3. Now, I'm going to come on down. I can end up writing that x minus 3 quantity squared because there's two of them. And if there's two of them, you can bring it down and write it as x minus 3 quantity squared equals 2. Back up here, negative 4 plus 9 gives me positive 5. Now, this should look familiar to you. You have everything squared equal to a constant. This is the perfect form to use the square root property. So, I will take the square root of both sides. When you take the square root of something squared, you get what's inside. Because taking the square root of something squared means they just undo each other. We end up with x minus 3 equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 5. Next, let's add 3 to both sides. So x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. But to put this in your homework, you would have 3 plus the square root of 5, comma, 3 minus the square root of 5.